Joining me now, the Afro-Middle East Centre's Naeem Gina, live from Washington, D.C. We have our U.S. correspondent, Simon Marks, and the South African Institute of International Affairs, Professor John Stremlow, is on Skype. Very warm welcome to all of you. Simon, give us a sense of how today played out, the drama.
Well, today is still playing out here, Jane. We are all reeling from that press conference that Donald Trump has just wrapped up. The most petulant, the most shameful, the most disgraceful presidential press conference in modern American history. Lambasting members of the press, threatening at one point almost to walk away from the podium in a bust-up that he was having with CNN's White House correspondent, accusing the White House correspondent of public broadcasting, of asking a racist question because she asked about the president's description of himself as a nationalist leader during the course of the election campaign, and then issuing a threat to the Democrats, who are now going to bedevil him in the House of Representatives, saying that he'd like to find a way of working with them, but if they go about beginning investigations and probes into what has been taking place inside his administration, well, you heard him there in that clip say it's going to be a warlike posture. Make no mistake, we are at the beginning of 2 years of absolutely scorched earth politics here as President Trump today begins the battle that he hopes will win him re-election 2 years from now. I
suspect you might be right, John Stremlow. Are we going to see scorched earth politics? And how do you think it's going to play out now? I mean, the US is already so polarized.
It is polarized. The realignment has been reinforced, I think, by this election. But what's at stake is a fundamental question for democracy, any democracy, South Africa's or anyone. Is majority going to rule and minority have the right of dissent? That's really what's at stake, because let's talk for a moment not about Donald Trump, but about the Republican Party, which he has captured. It is a minority party. It failed to get a popular vote in 2016, and what it did yesterday was to consolidate its control over the U.S. Senate, where they turned several seats in key states, but like Indiana, North Dakota, and Missouri, you add up the population of these, and there may be a third the size of the 2 Senate representation in California. So it's a minority government that they're desperately trying to consolidate through their court appointments, as you alluded to earlier. And it's going to be interesting and very important to see whether or not in 2020 the Democrats can continue the march of reconsolidating democracy under a much more diverse coalition that is reflected in yesterday's win in the House of Representatives. That is an extension of the Obama coalition. It does exercise a backlash by white nationalists in America who feel now endangered. We know that story. It's very familiar to South Africans. It is at the heart of this democratic struggle.
Okay. No, just listening to that and the backlash that we know will come, what sort of impact do you think it'll have on many of his policies, immigration, and with the Democrats regaining a bit of power in the House of Representatives, what sort of policies should they be looking at tweaking?
Well, I think he's going to have a serious problem with regard to domestic policies. That includes things like immigration, but also, the Democrats have highlighted already the health care issue. They're going to win this one. So he's going to have serious problems there, and his movement is going to be quite constrained, I think, as compared to the previous Congress. What that could mean, and this is not unusual for U.S. presidents after midterm elections when they've had a problem. What that could mean is that for the next 2 years he'll focus on foreign policy. That also is not an easy ride, because a lot of foreign policy issues the House of Representatives has to discuss and approve, etc. But there's
favorite targets, Iran and all of that. I'm sure that the Democrats will try and pull him back from that.
The Democrats will try and pull him back from Iran. Saudi Arabia, they'll want him to take a stronger position, which even Republicans would want him to do, and he might lose on that one because of that kind of bi-party agreement on that. But the one big issue, which is a foreign policy issue, but for him is really a domestic issue, and that is the Israeli-Palestinian question. The moves that he's made on that issue have very much to do with the fact that that's a favorite issue of his constituency, his core constituency. So as he begins tonight preparing for re-election, I think that that's one of the big issues he's going to focus on. He's going to hope to unveil his so-called deal of the century, which is, a disaster of the century for the Palestinians. But he'll hope to unveil that before the next election, so that he can ensure a re-election.
So he'll certainly get his support there. But let's talk about the Democrats a little bit, Simon Marks, and what we're likely to see there. We've seen younger, more female faces. People are saying that characters like Nancy Pelosi, her time is over.
Yes, although I don't think she thinks that her time is over, and it looks like she will become the next Speaker of the House of Representatives. But the Democrats are celebrating what they're referring to here as the year of the women, because more than 100 Democratic women were returned to office in the midterm elections, including 2 Muslim American women who become the first Muslim American women to sit in the House of Representatives. But that is not necessarily all good news for the Democrats, because Donald Trump relishes nothing more than going after people and having targets to go after. And he's now in a position where he can stop talking about Hillary Clinton and he can start talking about Nancy Pelosi and those young Democrats who he insists are radical socialist Democrats, even though they are, of course, nothing of the kind. He is going to make hay with that throughout the course of the next 2 years in a bid to continue to energize his base with an anti-immigrant nationalist message that he's going to take all the way to the 2020 election.
And can I just add, 2 Native Americans were also voted in, and Nancy Pelosi is having a press conference as we speak, so it'll be interesting to hear what she has to say. John Strenberg, very quickly, other than the RAND welcoming this news or responding positively, how should South Africa see what's going on, and why should we care about what's happened today?
Well, if Trump was to do something with AGOA, that would have a big impact. But basically, I think South Africa has to get its own house in order, because America is going to be really consumed with domestic affairs. The Congress now has investigatory powers in the House of Representatives. It can't pass legislation by itself, but it certainly can criticize and investigate Donald Trump's misdeeds, and that will put him under pressure, escalate the conflict, and again, preoccupy America on internal affairs at the expense of foreign policy.
All right, let's leave it there. John Stremlow, Simon Marks, and Naeem Gina, thank you very much. That was it for the show. News is next. I'll see you then.